If you've ever been told you have to choose either build muscle or lose body fat, then this video is probably going to save you months of frustration. Because whilst that advice is true for some people, it's completely wrong for many others. In fact, some of the best transformations I've helped clients achieve happen because we built muscle while losing body fat at exactly the same time. Not by following some magic workout, not by buying expensive supplements, and definitely not by living in the gym. Just by understanding how your body actually works. One of the biggest myths in fitness is that everyone needs to bulk first, then cut, then bulk again, then cut again. But for probably 80% of the people watching this video, that's not the smartest approach. If you're carrying a reasonable amount of body fat, your body already has stored energy. And when you combine that with the right nutrition, enough protein, progressive strength training, and good recovery, your body can usually use those stored fat reserves for building muscle at the same time. That's called body recomposition, and it's one of the most effective ways to completely transform your physique. Now, before we go any further, why should you actually listen to me? Because over the last few years, I've helped hundreds of men completely transform their physique, from losing 20 kg plus to building muscle to getting visible abs for the first time to finally feel confident taking their shirt off on holiday. And one thing I've learned is this: most people aren't failing because they aren't working hard enough. They're failing because they're following the wrong strategy for where they are right now. So in this video, I'm going to show you who body recomposition actually works for, who it doesn't, and the 5 things you absolutely have to get right, the biggest mistakes almost everyone makes, and how we've used this exact process with hundreds of clients to completely transform their physiques. But first, let's answer the biggest question. Can you actually build muscle and lose fat at the same time? The answer is yes, but with one important condition. It depends on where you're starting from. Because if you're a beginner, someone coming back after a long break, or someone carrying a moderate amount of body fat, you are in one of the best positions possible to recomp. Your body is incredibly responsive, you have plenty of room to improve, and if you give your muscles the right stimulus while eating enough protein, your body can build muscle while using stored body fat as fuel. Think of it like a hybrid car. You've already got fuel sitting in the tank, your body fat is that fuel. If you lift weights consistently and give your body enough protein, your body has every reason to use that stored energy while building muscle. That's why someone can actually weigh less but look significantly more muscular. Their shoulders look broader, their chest looks fuller, their arms look bigger, their waist gets smaller. The scale doesn't tell the full story, their body composition changes. Now, if you're already incredibly lean, say around 10 to 12% body fat, and you've been training seriously for years, body recomposition becomes much harder. Not impossible, just slower. Because at that stage, your body has less stored energy available and muscle growth naturally slows down. That's often when dedicated gaining phases and cutting phases become more effective. Because for the majority of people watching this video, body composition is absolutely achievable. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people making is asking the wrong question. They ask, should I bulk or should I cut? But the better question is, what body fat percentage am I roughly at right now? Because that's what determines your next step. If you're carrying more body fat, you probably don't need a traditional bulk. You need a structured body recomposition phase. If you're already lean and struggling to gain muscle, that's a different conversation. But most people skip the next step completely. They copy what bodybuilders do or what influencers are doing without asking whether it is actually right for their own body. And I want to show you a perfect example. Josh came to us after spending around a year training consistently in the gym. He'd already built a solid foundation, but he wanted to take things to the next level. His goal wasn't just to lose weight, it wasn't just to build muscle, it was both. He wanted to get leaner, increase his muscle mass, and finally feel confident taking his top off. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly where a lot of people watching this video probably are. Now here's what we didn't do. We didn't slash calories, we didn't make him do hours of cardio, we didn't put him on some ridiculous crash diet. Instead, we focused on the fundamentals: a moderate calorie deficit, high protein, progressive overload in the gym, recovery, and consistency week after week. The result, over 24 weeks, Josh lost 6.1 kg, but more importantly, he didn't just lose weight, he built muscle throughout the process. His lifts kept improving, his physique became noticeably more muscular, more defined, and far more athletic. Why? Because every single week he gave his muscles a reason to grow. He pushed for more reps, more weight, better execution, and combined with a high protein diet, his body responded exactly how we wanted it to. That's a body recomposition, not chasing the lowest number on the scales, changing the way your body actually looks. So now you know that body recomposition is possible. The next question is, how do you actually do it? Because this is where a lot of people get confused. They think they need the perfect workout, the perfect meal plan, the perfect supplement stack. But in reality, almost every successful body recomposition comes down to getting 5 things right. Miss one of them and your progress slows down. Get all 5 right consistently and your body has no choice but to change. Step 1 is to get your calories right. This is where most people make make their first mistake. They think, if I want to lose fat faster, I'll just eat as little as possible. But body recomposition isn't about losing weight as quickly as you can. It's about creating the right environment for your body to lose fat while still having enough energy to build and maintain muscle. That's why I rarely use aggressive calorie deficits with clients who are trying to recomp. Instead, we usually aim for a small sustainable deficit, enough to encourage fat loss. Not so much that recovery suffers, training performance drops, and muscle growth becomes almost impossible. Remember, you're trying to improve your body composition, not just become lighter. Step 2 is to prioritize protein. If I could give someone one piece of nutrition advice for body recomposition, it would be this: eat enough protein every single day, because protein is what gives your body the building blocks it needs to repair and grow muscle. It's also incredibly filling, which makes staying in a calorie deficit much easier. And perhaps most importantly, it helps protect the muscle you've already built while you're losing the body fat. This is why you'll hear me talking about protein in almost every video, not because it's trendy, because it works. Step 3 is progressive overload. This is probably the biggest reason people say, I've been going to the gym for years and I still look the same. They're exercising, but they're just simply not progressing. Your body only builds muscle when it has a reason to. If you're lifting exactly the same weights for exactly the same reps month after month, your body has no reason to adapt. Every week you should be aiming to improve something. Maybe it's one extra rep, maybe it's an extra 2.5 kg on the bar, maybe your technique is cleaner. Progress doesn't have to be huge, it just has to be consistent. And Henry is a perfect example of this. When Henry came to us, he had a question that stopped so many people from ever committing a fat loss phase. He said, what if I put in all this work and lose muscle when I diet? It's a genuine fear because he spent years building himself up to 180 pounds. This wasn't someone who just wanted to lose weight. He'd worked hard to build muscle. The last thing he wanted was to look smaller and weaker. So instead of rushing into a crash diet, we built a proper strategy. We kept protein high. We continued pushing progressive overload wherever possible. We made sure training quality stayed high, and we treated the diet as a way of revealing the muscle we'd already built, not sacrificing it. The result after 16 weeks, Henry went from 180 to 163.6 pounds. But here's the part most people don't expect. He didn't look smaller, he looked sharper. His shoulders stood out more, his chest looked fuller, his waist became smaller, he looked far more athletic, and despite being in a calorie deficit, he continued getting stronger, even while playing football at a high level. That's what happens when you stop chasing fat loss and start chasing body composition. Step 4 is to recover properly. This is the step almost everyone ignores because people become obsessed with training harder, doing more, adding more exercises, doing more cardio, more volume. But muscle doesn't actually grow while you're lifting weights, it grows afterwards when you recover. If you're sleeping 5 hours a night, constantly stressed, and never giving your body a chance to recover, you're making muscle growth much harder than it needs to be. Recovery isn't being lazy, it's part of the process. Step 5 is be consistent for long enough. This might sound obvious, but it's where almost everyone falls short. People expect body recomposition to happen in 2 or 3 weeks. Then when they don't wake up looking like a fitness model, they assume it isn't working. The truth is, building muscle is relatively slow. Losing body fat is relatively slow. Doing both requires patience. But when you zoom out over 3, 6, or even 12 months, the changes can be incredible. And the best part, unlike crash diets, those changes actually last. Now, there are a few mistakes I see over and over again that completely stop people from achieving body recomposition. Some of them are so common that they almost guarantee you'll stay stuck no matter how hard you're working. And if you're making even one of these mistakes right now, fixing it could completely change your results over the next few months. So let's go through them. A lot of these mistakes come from trying too hard. They're not being lazy, they're not avoiding effort, they're actually putting in too much effort in the wrong areas. Mistake number 1 is trying to lose fat too aggressively. This is probably the biggest mistake I see. People get excited, they want results quickly, so they drastically reduce their calories. They add loads of cardio, they try to force their body to change as fast as possible, and initially it might work. The scale drops. They feel motivated, but the problem comes after. Training performance starts to decline, energy drops, recovery suffers, and the muscle growth they were trying to achieve becomes much harder. Remember, the goal of body recomposition isn't how quickly can I lose weight. The goal is how can I create the best looking physique possible. And those two things are not always the same. Sometimes losing slower actually creates a better result because you're giving your body enough resources to maintain and build muscle. Mistake number 2 is changing the plan too often. This one is huge. Someone follows a program for 2 weeks. They don't see a massive transformation, so they change completely everything. New workout, new diet, new supplements, new approach. Then 2 weeks later, they do it again. And before they know it, they've spent years constantly starting over. The reality is, a good plan doesn't need to be changed every time progress feels slow. It needs enough time to work. Your body doesn't transform overnight. Muscle doesn't grow in a week. Fat loss doesn't disappear in a week. The people who get the best results are usually the people who can stay consistent through the boring middle, the weeks where nothing dramatic happens, because that's where the magic happens. Mistake number 3 is not training with enough intensity. And this is something I want to clarify. Training hard doesn't mean destroying yourself every single session. It doesn't mean leaving the gym unable to walk. It means giving your muscles a reason to adapt. You need to challenge yourself. You need to progressively overload. You need to push close enough to your limits that your body has a reason to grow, because your body is incredibly efficient. It adapts to whatever you repeatedly do. If you give it the same stimulus forever, it has no reason to change. The goal is simple. Give your body a reason to become stronger, then give it the nutrients and recovery required to adapt. Mistake number 4 is focusing only on the scale. This one causes so much frustration because body recomposition can be confusing. You might lose fat but gain muscle. You might look dramatically different, but the scale hasn't moved as much as you expected. And this is where people panic. They think it's not working, but the mirror tells a different story. Your waist is smaller, your shoulders are broader, your clothes fit better, your strength is improving, your confidence is increasing. Those are all signs of progress. The scale is just one measurement, it's not the whole picture. And some of the best transformation I've seen haven't been people who lost the most weight. They've been the people who changed their entire body composition. Mistake number 5 is creating a plan that doesn't fit your lifestyle, because this is the one that determines whether your results last. You can have the perfect training program, the perfect nutrition plan, the perfect strategy, but if it doesn't fit your actual life, you won't follow it. And this is where Anthony's transformation is a great example. Anthony joined the team with a very clear goal. He wanted to reduce his body fat, get more definition, and ultimately have visible abs while walking the beaches of Thailand on holiday. Now, the interesting thing about Anthony is he already had a strong foundation. He had a well-developed muscle tissue, good symmetry, and years of training behind him. The goal wasn't simply to lose weight, it was to reveal the physique he'd built underneath. So the approach was very specific. We focused on getting his nutrition dialed in, high protein, a controlled calorie deficit, and a training approach built around progressing his lifts. Because remember, the goal wasn't just to make Anthony lighter, the goal was to make him look better. And throughout the process, something important happened. Life got busy, very busy. During November and December, his professional life became extremely demanding. His routine was disrupted, meal timings changed, workout days became harder to manage, sleep took a hit. And this is the exact moment where most people fall off, because they think, well, I can't do this perfectly anymore, so what's the point? But that's not how successful people think. Instead, we focused on what we could control. We didn't panic. We didn't throw away the progress. We just adjusted. We maintained. We limited the damage. And then when things settled down again, we pushed forward. And that lesson is so important, because the people who succeed aren't people who never experience setbacks. Everyone does. The difference is they know how to handle them. They don't turn one difficult week into 3 months off. They don't say, I'll start again Monday. They keep moving. And that's exactly why Anthony continued progressing, because the transformation wasn't built on perfect conditions. It was built on consistency. So if you're trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, remember, don't crash diet. Don't constantly change your plan. Don't neglect progressive overload. Don't obsess over only the scale. And don't create a plan that doesn't fit your life. So the final question is, should you be trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time? Or should you focus on losing fat first? Or should you actually be trying to gain muscle? Because this is where a lot of people get confused. They see someone online doing a huge bulk, they see someone else doing an aggressive cut, and they think, which one should I be doing? But the truth is, there isn't one answer that works for everyone. The right approach depends on where you are starting from. So let me simplify this. If you are carrying a decent amount of body fat, you're probably not someone who needs to jump into a bulk. You already have the energy stored on your body. Your priority should usually be improving your body composition. Lose fat, build or maintain muscle, create a strong foundation. This is where body recomposition works incredibly well. If you're somewhere around the middle ground, maybe you've trained before, maybe you've built some muscle, but you still don't have the definition you want, this is where a structured recomp phase can completely transform your physique. You don't need to rush into gaining more size. You need to reveal what you've already built while continuing to progress. And then if you're already relatively lean, you've built a good amount of muscle and your main goal is adding more size, that's when a dedicated muscle building phase makes more sense. But even then, the goal isn't to gain as much weight as possible. The goal is controlled progress, building muscle while staying in a condition you're happy with. And this is exactly why we created the Triple R approach, because for a lot of men, the journey isn't just one straight phase, it's a process. Rip, reverse, rebuild. The first stage is the rip phase. This is where we focus on reducing body fat, improving habits, building consistency, consistency, and getting the body into a position where muscle growth becomes much easier. Then comes the reverse phase, and this is where most people make mistakes. They finish a fat loss phase, then immediately go back to it, eating exactly how they used to. They regain the weight, they lose momentum, and they repeat the cycle. Instead, we gradually increase calories, we bring food back in, we improve performance, and we teach the body how to maintain the results. Then comes the rebuild phase. This is where the focus shifts towards building muscle. Now you've got more calories, better training performance, a stronger foundation, and a body that's ready to grow. And Joe's transformation is a perfect example of this process. Joe came to us with a very clear goal. He wanted more definition, he wanted to drop body fat, and he wanted to start building more muscle. But instead of rushing straight into trying to gain size, we looked at the bigger picture. The first goal was getting leaner, not just for aesthetics, but because getting his body into a leaner condition would put him in the best possible position for future muscle growth. So we focused on the fundamentals: training, nutrition, consistency, getting his body composition moving in the right direction. Once Joe reached that leaner condition around that 10 to 12% body fat range, we were in a much better position. Now the goal wasn't simply losing fat anymore. The goal was transitioning into a growth phase. So we started the reverse diet process, slowly increasing calories, building his food intake back up, and preparing his body for more productive muscle growth. And this is the part most people miss. Getting lean is not the end goal. It's actually the beginning of a new opportunity. Because once you've built the discipline, once you've built the habits, once you understand nutrition, you have much more control over your physique. So if you're watching this and thinking, where do I start? Here's what I would focus on. Step 1, work out where you're currently at. Are you carrying excess body fat? Are you relatively lean but lacking muscle? Are you already muscular and just need to get leaner? Your starting point determines your strategy. Step 2 is to prioritize protein. Aim for a high protein intake every single day. Your body needs those building blocks. Step 3 is train with purpose. Don't just go through the motions. Track your lifts. Try to improve. Give your body a reason to adapt. Step 4 is be patient. Body recomposition is not a 2-week challenge, it's a process. But the changes that come from doing things correctly are worth it. And finally, step 5, stop looking for shortcuts. Because the biggest transformations I've seen don't come from people who found a secret trick. They come from people who finally committed to the basics long enough. Josh didn't transform because he found a magic diet. He transformed because he consistently executed the fundamentals. Henry didn't lose fat because he did endless cardio. He lost fat because he had a structured plan designed to protect his muscle. Anthony didn't succeed because life was perfect. He succeeded because he knew how to stay consistent when life wasn't. Joe didn't just lose weight. He built the foundation for the next stage of his physique. And that's what body recomposition is really about. It's not about chasing a number on the scales. It's about building a body you're proud of, a body that makes you feel more confident, a body that supports your lifestyle, and a process that you can actually maintain. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. Every week I share videos helping men lose fat, build muscle, and completely transform their confidence without extreme diets or unsustainable approaches. And if you're someone who's been stuck wondering, should I bulk? Should I cut? Why isn't my training working? The answer probably isn't more effort. It's having the right strategy for where you're currently at. And if you want quick, simple fat loss and muscle gain tips, make sure you head over to my Instagram and drop me a follow. And I shall see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.